Last of all, Húrin stood alone. Then he cast aside his shield and wielded an axe two-handed. And it is sung that the axe smoked in the black blood of the troll guard of Gothmog, until it withered. And each time that he slew, Húrin cried, "Aure intuluva! Day shall come again." 70 times he uttered that cry, but they took him at last alive, by the command of Morgoth. Hey everyone, Yoiston here, and I hope you all are doing well, wherever you are in Middle-earth. Today we are going back to a classic, an epic character history, this time on Húrin Thalion, the greatest warrior of men in the First Age, he who was cursed by Morgoth. I've seen comments over the years asking for epic character histories on those such as Turgon, Beren, Luthien, and Tur, but for those characters, their stories are told in full in their major tales, the Great Tales as they are known, so check those videos out for those characters. As for today, Húrin's story mostly takes place before and a bit after the main events of the story of his son Turgon. For more information, please check out the articles and videos in the description and cards, my friends. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Let's begin our story. Born as the heir to one of the 3 houses of the Edain, the families of men that crossed into Beleriand from Middle-earth in the First Age, Húrin, whose name in Noldorin roughly means vigor and heart, was the son of Galdor, grandson of Hador himself, and his mother was Hareth of the House of Haleth. He would also be called Thalion, meaning dauntless in Sindarin, but he would also be referred to eventually by his son Turgon as Umarth, ill fate, as a part of Turin's secret identity. He was born in 441 in the region of Dorlomin in Hithlum, a region in the northwest part of Beleriand. The House of Hador served High King Fingolfin and High King Fingon after him. Húrin had a brother, Hur, and the two were inseparable and mighty together. For a time, Húrin and Hur went to the forest of Brethil and grew up under the watch and guidance of the Haladin, and their uncle Haldir, who was the son of the chieftain, and fostered them. They learned quite a bit from these men, how their strategies, culture, and customs were different from their own people to the west. In the year 455, when Húrin was 14 years old, the leaguer upon Morgoth and Angband broke during the Battle of Sudden Flame, and after this, orcs began to come down south into the countryside of Beleriand, and in 456 a group of orcs ambushed Húrin and his brother in their company of scouts. The 2 brothers were separated from their group, and they were pursued down to the river Sirion. Ulmo, the Vala of Waters, who always had the well wishes of men and elves in his heart, saved them with a great mist. After they passed on and evaded the orcs, Thorondor, Lord of the Eagles, saw them, sending 2 of his eagles to their aid, who carried them then to Gondolin, which was unknown to them, but rather nearby. Turgon, the king of the city, brother of High King Fingon, received them well, remembering the words of Ulmo to be kind to the House of Hador, and remembering Hador to be an elf friend himself. Turgon came to love them as they stayed in his realm for nearly a year, but in his heart Húrin wished to return to his people, share in their grievances and their wars, knowing the orcs were abroad. While Turgon wished for the young men to stay in his realm, he understood that they wished to leave, yet there was another problem. No mortal man had ever come to Gondolin before, nor did any have the permission to leave Gondolin at that time, since they would know where it was. It was the Hidden City, and Turgon went to great lengths to keep it that way. However, the men rightfully claimed that they had been carried there, and did not know the roads or paths inside. After this, Húrin and Hur also swore an oath never to reveal Gondolin's location to any, and this oath and Húrin's honor would be the cause for the curse upon his family later in life. Turgon said that they may meet again. By the same way they came, Húrin and Hur left and returned to their people in Dorlomin, in the realm of Hithlum, returning there before 462. They would tell no one where they had been, saying only that they swore oaths of secrecy in order to return, and many guessed based on that information where they were. In 462, the orcs invaded Hithlum, slaying Húrin's father Galdor, who defended the fortress of Ithel Sirion, the home of High King Fingon. Húrin, who was not as tall as his father, but stronger than perhaps any man who had come before, defeated the orcs and pushed them back. He returned home to become the Lord of Dorlomin, to continue serving High King Fingon as his forebears had, and he married Morwen Elithwin of the House of Beor. They would have 3 children, Turin first, Urwin, better known as Lalaith, or Laughter, who would die of the plague, and eventually Nienor, but Húrin would never meet her. Dark times were coming with the death of Laughter, But also it would be Húrin's greatest moment, remembered forever in the histories and songs of Middle-earth. In 472, after the capture of the Silmaril by Beren and Luthien, the forces of elves and men were renewed in spirit enough to take the fight to Morgoth once more directly, and Lord Húrin would follow King Fingon to war with his men. Many of the interactions between Húrin and Turin may be found in the Children of Húrin book, which I would highly recommend. They went on to fight the forces of Morgoth in the north directly, and unlooked for, King Turgon and his host from Gondolin opened the Leaguer and left the Hidden Realm to join them. This renewed the spirits of all, and it seemed nothing could break them on the field. But they were wrong. The forces of Morgoth were enhanced by the flames of the Balrogs, and Fingon would be slain by them, making Turgon the new High King of the Noldor, for Fingon had no sons, at least when Gil-galad is considered to be the son of Orodreth. Turgon, either way, needed to escape, as the hope for the Eldar and men was with him. Húrin and Hur knew this, and pledged to keep Gondolin safe once more. And as the elves retreated, the men of Dor-lómin held the line, giving little by little ground until they stood, fought, and died. Hur stood with his brother, having said to Turgon before he left that a new star shall come from him and from Turgon. But then Hur took an arrow through the eye and was slain. Húrin then stood alone, using a two-handed axe that was mired with the blood of foes, crying Aure Intiluva, day shall come again, for every foe he slew, as the trollish blood withered his weapon. He uttered that cry 70 times, fighting until he was buried by the bodies of his enemies, even as he hewed off their arms that tried to grapple him. Then the Lord of the Balrogs, Gothmog, bound him and brought him to Morgoth. He was brought before the Dark Lord, but even in the face of such dreadful evil, Húrin would not falter, nor ask for mercy, nor death. Not then, not ever. He rebuked Morgoth in words, defying him and cursing him. If Fingolfin fought the Dark Lord with arms, then Húrin fought him in words and philosophy, and his courage should be noted in its own right. Húrin was captured because it became known to Morgoth that he was friends with Turgon, and feared him and his realm more than any other in Beleriand. Since Húrin would not break his oath and reveal the location of Gondolin, he and his family were cursed by Morgoth. He was put upon a chair of stone high upon Thangorodrim, and was given use of Morgoth's eyes and ears to watch what became of his own family. Evil would come wherever they went, their advice would be ill-wrought, and what they did turned against them. And then they would die without hope, cursing life and death both. And so the events of the Children of Húrin commenced, which I detail in some older videos of mine. Much ruin came, the fall of Nargothrond, the deaths of many, the slaying of Glaurung, and the eventual deaths of Turin and Nienor by their own intents. For 28 years, Húrin watched this happen. Then, once he was broken, Húrin was released. Morgoth still hoped to learn more from him. He came out of the north and little resembled himself of old, nor was regarded, as he once was, among any who even remembered him. First he sought his own home, but it was then ruled by the Easterlings. Then he went east and attempted to find Gondolin, crying aloud for Turgon around the area that he knew Gondolin was. And when word came to the Elven King from Thorondor the Eagle, he shut his heart to Húrin, believing him to have surrendered to the will of Morgoth. But Turgon, after sitting in thought and remembering the deeds of Húrin, opened his heart once more, and sent the eagle to bring him, yet Húrin was gone. Morgoth marked Húrin's actions here, and now knew the general location of Gondolin because of him. Húrin continued on, coming at last to the memorial site of his son and daughter, reuniting with Morwen his wife at last before she too perished, and he buried her. He made her a grave which would survive the fall of Beleriand, becoming the Isle of Tol Morwen. Then Húrin continued onwards, going to the ruins of Nargothrond, the site of his son's greatest military defeat. He found there the petty dwarf Mime, and knowing of his betrayal to his son Turin, Húrin murdered the dwarf. He found the Nauglamir, a necklace made by dwarves, and continued on the last leg of his journey. He came to Doriath, to Menegroth, and let out his anger towards King Thingol, stricken with an unnatural but understandable grief, thanking him for aiding Turin with sarcasm, as Thingol had fostered but failed to save Turin. Melian pierced through Húrin's veil of madness and darkness, giving him some relief and freedom in the end. and the man stooped and picked up the Nauglamir, now presenting it as a true gift for King Thingol, for watching over his son. The man, after all of this, went to the sea and cast himself into it, in 502, at the age of 61, having no purpose or desire left in the world. His is perhaps the quintessential sorrowful tale of men in the First Age, as Húrin always acted with good intent and with strength, but could not overcome the will of the world around him. He visited many elven and mannish realms throughout his life, and while he always tried to aid them, he may have instead contributed to their eventual falls. And so, on that sorrowful note, we come to the end of our tale about Húrin Thalion, he who was cursed by Morgoth. From this story, we see that we must always remember that, no matter how dark the night, Aure Intiluva, day shall come again. We must always fight for that better day, as Húrin did. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all enjoyed this epic character history. If you did, please be sure to hit that like button and share this with a friend. What are your thoughts on Húrin? Let me know in the comments below. He is a great character, and I love that elven saying of his. It will always remind me that there is always hope. If you'd like to support the channel, please consider getting some candles from our friends Mythologie Candles, or order some Wet Air United cutlery, Lord of the Rings swords, statues, and other replicas from Castle Kon. It does international shipping, and use the code WEST at checkout. And please check out our merch and Patreon. Thanks to our Valar tier patrons and YouTube members: Peter Shepard, Jonathan Putnam, Blair Scouten, Merton, John Hume, Sam McBee, Elizabeth Calvert, Maz Gibbs, Reese Jenkins, Adam Petrlik, Anthony Harmon, Arthur Merlin, Dale Davis, Kingswild Project, and King of Games 2500. Thank you all so much to our patrons and YouTube members. Please subscribe and hit that bell button to join the Men of the West and all of the free peoples today. And I'll see you all again next week with a video on why Tom Bombadil is important. My friends, thank you all so much for joining me on this adventure. Until the next one.